Welcome everybody. We're back with another episode of Crunchy Christian Mamas, and I have with me today Donna again. I'm so thankful that Donna was able to come back and talk to us some more. And today we're going to talk about pain, how she's dealt with pain in her family. But for those of you who maybe missed the last episode with Donna or don't remember, let me just do a quick introduction. She has been using homeopathy for about 3 years, and she loves to treat her family and her animals and her friends with homeopathy. Her favorite homeopathic remedies are Ignatia and Arnica, and I agree, those are two of my absolute favorites. She says that both work so well for so many people and so many things. I agree. Friends, if you don't have Ignatia and Arnica on hand, you want to get those and have those, so that you can, and then you can learn how to use them, but they're so useful. And she describes herself as a crunchy Christian mama who has been on a wonderful journey the past 20 years of sanctification and wellness. The progression in each area has been parallel to another. For her, natural wellness goes hand in hand with her increasing awareness of not only who she is in Him, but how God has made our bodies to heal themselves when given the right methods, and to let go of the idea that when she takes a remedy, she should feel immediate relief. Sometimes true healing takes time. That is my soapbox. Please don't come to homeopathy and compare it to allopathy. Don't look at a remedy for your headache the same way you would look at ibuprofen for your headache. It's not designed to work in the exact same way. Well, although sometimes it can, sometimes we'll see very fast relief, even immediate relief sometimes. But sometimes we have to move through the illness or the condition, and homeopathy helps our bodies to do that easier and faster. So welcome, Donna. I'm so happy you're here with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back. I love to talk about homeopathy, and I'm happy I have someone new to talk to about it because I think everybody's tired of hearing me talk so much about it already.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, I understand that. I understand that. So my family, yeah, I don't talk a lot about it with them. They hear it all the time, because I'm always teaching classes and
Hmm.
doing consults. So they're learning as they just hear me teaching classes. So I don't have to really
Yes.
do that with them. But so pain is such a big, problem in today's
Hmm.
world, and so many people are addicted to pain medications. And so this episode, we're just going to give a few examples. Donna has had great success with pain, so I am super excited to hear about some of those stories. And the first one I would love for you to tell us about, Donna, is your husband's chronic back pain. Tell us all about that, because we all want our husbands and our family members to love this medicine as much as we do. And it made him a believer. Is that right?
This was one of the two things that made him a believer. So, well, not curing completely. So, um, greatly reducing to the point of it's a rare occurrence that he has back pain now. And so for him personally, and then maybe a story I'll get to tell you some other time about healing my daughter's earache. Those were the two, which involved a lot of pain for her as well. Those were the two things that made him a believer. So this back pain he has had since we got married, before we got married. So we've been married 18 years, and upon getting married, one of my um, uh, ways that I would help him get relief from his back pain was massage, and I'm happy to do that for him. Um, we spent many evenings of me massaging his back. He does have a sit down office job, right? So he's sitting in the chair a long time. Sometimes he doesn't even, get up to go get lunch. He eats at his desk. He's sitting for a long time. And that coupled with he's high energy. So on the weekends, he was at it from, 8, 9 a.m. until 6 p.m., tackling all of the yard work and house improvements, everything. He's a do-it-all. And so a lot of times, Saturday night would be his taking multiple Advil, you know, double doses into Sunday. And then, Monday he's supposed to be back at work, sitting down in his chair again. And a lot of times, Monday afternoon was when he would work from home on Mondays as well, just barely be able to get out of his chair because his back was just so stiff. And he had used chiropractic, which did work very well for him to get him mobile again. But for treating that, so as prevention, he did stretches, he did physical therapy, he had a personal trainer. All of that, again, was kind of more of a short-term fix for him that would get him moving back again. And sometimes he would be good for a few months, but it was always, my back's stiff, my back's tight. Can you rub my back? Can you rub my legs and etc. So after I discovered homeopathy, I had actually read an article from Joette Calabrese, which was my introduction into homeopathy, was through Joette Calabrese and practical homeopathy. And I read an article about a person that had helped their family moved that day and, overstrain, overuse. So she had suggested Symphytum 200 mixed with Rhus Tox 30. So I said, let's try this. Let's try using Rhus Tox and Symphytum mix twice a day. I said, but in the meantime, when it's hurting, take some arnica. Try Arnica 200. And then I also bought the arnica gel. Actually, I bought two different things. I bought the arnica, just arnica gel. And then I also found a gel called Tea Relief, which is a combination. I should have brought the bottle. Anyways, it's got arnica, Rhus Tox. I think it might have Ruta in it as well. A couple of different of the most used, most well-known pain remedies in there. And so I would massage that into those back muscles. And so that was our protocol for him for about a week after he had some mild back pain. And he was like, just feeling kind of better, He wasn't taking the Advil anymore that time. And can't remember exactly what happened, but he tweaked it pretty bad. And so we went back to, okay, let's take arnica. And this was a time where he was really in pain, like lying on the floor, can't move, can't get up. And so I gave him arnica 1M. So this was my first time giving a 1M potency. So I knew it's homeopathy and it can't hurt him, so I wasn't too anxious about it. So I said, try this. Let's see how you feel in about 30 minutes. And I think it was, if I recall correctly, it was about 30 minutes. And he goes, I think I'm feeling a little bit better, but at the same time I was massaging again. So I said, well, let's take another dose, but this time just do arnica 200. And let's wait for about 30 minutes and see how you feel. And he's like, I think it's a little better. I said, okay, well, I'll give you another dose. And then we were able to start spacing it out over, the next time it was a couple of hours. So I didn't want to be on top of him checking, every 30 minutes, like, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? I kind of wanted him to tell me, because that's a really good indicator. when he tells me, because then I know it's bugging him, or it's really not bugging him to the point where he needs something. So that was an incident of that, and after an overuse instance. But I told him to just keep on twice a day doing the Symphytum roost tox, and we'll use the arnica as needed. And that was working really well. So then he was like, no back pain after a couple weeks. I said, okay, so then it's time to stop your remedies. See how you feel. Okay. And then it became like an every weekend kind of thing. So he was pretty good during the week, sitting in his chair, not really bugging him much at all. Not that to the point where he was wanting to take something for it, which was good. That's progression. And then it started even spacing out, not every weekend. And then it became when it was just really more of an overuse strain issue. And we also, one other thing, he made himself a card because he would keep coming to me and going like, okay, what do I need to take and for why do I need to take this? So he made up his own remedy card, which I make my own anyways. So he has for pain, for when he has his back muscles, he has that. For arnica, 200 every 2 to 3 hours if needed. And we also found in the course of trying different things for him that roost tox worked really well for him. For me personally, I haven't had a great results with roost tox, but that seems to work really well for him, alternating with the arnica for his back. And I think I discovered that one just on some more reading in my Materia Medica, because I really wanted to get to know arnica more than just for his back issue, which is another story. So, but in reading different options for his back, I wanted to make sure that I was giving him hopefully the best one for him. And I know arnica, as we know, arnica is a great remedy for so many things. But I did want to explore other options just to make sure. And we did find that roost tox works well when alternated with arnica for him. So
wonderful.
It was worth a shot. So it got to the point where he had not taken Advil in a very long time,
nice.
Which is amazing.
Yes.
He was really going through Advil. So I threw it all away.
I love it.
One day, and I cleaned out. Plus, I needed the space because I was buying more homeopathic remedies.
Yeah.
So I said, this is no longer the Advil corner. Take it out. I have you a bottle of Arnica 1M, 200, 30, some roost tox in there, some Symphytum. So he is just, and that's the thing where he keeps saying, I can't believe how well this works. I can't believe how well this works. And I said, after, it's been a couple of years now, right? It's been 2 years.
Wow, 2 years. Awesome.
So now he knows. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also, what I've noticed, and I may have heard this at some point and it just didn't stick with me, but as soon as he feels it, he'll go take arnica. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like allopathic, where the sooner you take it, it knocks it out.
Yes.
I've noticed that when I treat my headaches, instead of trying to wait and see how bad it gets before I have to take something. Mm-hmm. With him, he takes the arnica and it's like, boom, great.
Yes. So thank you for sharing all that. I have several things, little notes that I made that I want to talk about, since this is a teaching podcast, really, and encouraging. I want to point out a couple things and maybe even ask a few more questions. So So what you started out with was Symphytum 200 mixed with Roostox 30, is that right? Or 200?
Yes.
30. Okay.
No,
So,
Roostox 30.
and so they were mixed with. So that means they were taken together at the same time in the mouth twice per day, every single day, whether or not he was having pain. So that's what we do for chronic conditions. And at the end of 2 months, we reassess the situation. So we say, okay, is it less frequent? Is it less severe? And if it is, then we keep going on that twice a day. And if it's not, then we need to move to a second line or a second line protocol if it's a Banerjee protocol, or a different remedy if that's not working. I love that you added the arnica gel as needed. I love that you added the arnica 200 or 1M as needed for him. And so then you, as he started to have less pain, you reduce the frequency. And that's exactly what we should do. As you get better, you should reduce the frequency. We don't want to keep taking a remedy more than we need it. But in the beginning, when you're dealing with a chronic condition, stick to it. Twice a day if that's the protocol. Stick to it. Do it every single day, whether or not you're in pain. So Roostox is, also I wanted to point out, Roostox is indicated when the pain is better with movement. So think about the Tin Man, who, when he first started moving, it was sore and it was creaky and it hurt, but once he moved more, then it felt better. So if you have the kind of pain that does not feel better with movement, is definitely worse with movement, then you would do Bryonia 200 instead of Roostox. So you could do Symphytum 200 mixed with Bryonia 30 or 200. I would prefer 200. And you could do that twice a day. So that's how you might want to differentiate your pain. Now, what your husband went through with sitting a lot and that making his pain worse is exactly what I did. That's exactly where I was. I had to, when I worked at the hospital, I had to stand up and work often because I would sit. And now, okay, yes, when I was seeing patients out on the floor, I was on my feet. But I spent most of my time in the office charting and doing the schedule and doing all the other administrative stuff. Taking phone calls and helping people over the phone. And so I had to stand up because sitting down definitely made it worse. And what helped me was Symphytum and Roostox also. And so then the next thing that I noticed is after just a couple of weeks, he was better. And then you reduced it. And then you saw that he only needed it on the weekends. And then you saw that he needed it, less and less frequently. So you met the intensity of the condition with the frequency of dosing. We definitely do that in acute conditions. Always do that in acute conditions. And with him, with the arnica, you were like, okay, this is really bad. Let's do 1M. And then 30 minutes later, 200. That was a great idea. Arnica is a very, very safe one to do in 1M. And so if you're scared of 1Ms, then arnica is a great one, a great place to start. Let's see. The other thing you mentioned was, I love that you mentioned that you figured out over time that Roostox works well for him alternating with arnica. Does that mean that you just kind of stopped using the Symphytum and you went to Roostox alternating with arnica? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So when he was no longer having consistent pain, and it even fell away from him not having it every weekend from doing his weekend warrior
Yeah.
home improvements, maintenance and everything. So at that point, that kind of clued me into, okay, I think we can stop this now, and then just go really treat it as acute, as a one-off, and use them, as they say, SOS,
Yeah.
as needed. And I will say, I was not diligent in the very beginning when I started treating him with this about writing everything down.
Mm.
But it did just so happen that about that 8 week point was when we saw it really start to lessen for him, which is funny. But so I have learned to take notes
Yes.
at the time that it's happening, because if I try and go write this down 2 days later, what I gave him or what caused
Yeah.
it and how frequently we had to dose, I forget. So
Yes.
if possible, that if you, my 2 cents is write it down when it's happening, if possible.
That's right.
It's so helpful
Yeah.
for the next time or the next person.
Yes, and that's what I teach in my classes is to keep good notes. And I teach people, or we talk about different ways to keep good notes. And so my favorite one is OneNote. Microsoft OneNote is my favorite way to keep notes. And my current example is our puppy, who's a German Shepherd. It's very common for the large breeds to grow really fast and get panosteitis, and so
Mm-hmm.
that's what he's dealing with right now. And he's already dealt with this once before. So the first time it happened, I really didn't know what in the world to do. Thankfully, I have a holistic vet who suggested calc phos. So I didn't know what it was. And I can't, and I'm just observing that he's limping. I'm observing that he's crying. I was giving Arnica 1M and I was giving Ruta, and that helped him, but it just wasn't
Mm-hmm.
quite getting him to where he needed it very often. So when I say very often, I'm going to say 3 to 4 times a day I was having to give him this. So every time he started just whining, he would just be laying there whining. I would give the arnica and the ruta, and he would stop whining. So I know that it helped, but he still was unable to move very well. So then I called the vet because I had no idea. I didn't know what panosteitis was. And I called the vet, and he says, try calc phos 6x, and 2 or 3 times a day. And I was like, okay. First dose, the first dose, I could tell a huge difference. I was like, that's it. So I stopped the arnica and the ruta, which again were helping but not quite getting it. And then calc phos seen a
Mm-hmm.
huge difference. So again, we're dealing with this again right now. And in my OneNote, which is on my phone, I can. It's an app, and I love technology. So those of you who don't like technology, that's okay. You can write it down somewhere. I can literally, while I'm
Yep.
walking to go put the remedy away, I can I can open up OneNote, go to his file because I have his little file in there with the other family members, and just voice text Calc Fawcett, 9 o'clock. So that's super easy and fast that I can do while I'm doing something else, while I'm moving, and I can do it anywhere. I did want to also just point out that to the listeners that you had said you found you used your materia medica to read about arnica because you wanted to learn more about arnica and all of its uses. What you said is I wanted to get to know arnica. I love that. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody who's serious about homeopathy, you need to own a repertory and a materia medica. And in my gateway classes, we touch on how to use those things. In my mentorship program, we actually practice and go deeper, and we really work on it together on how to find remedies for certain things. And so, and then you said that. Oh, let me back up and say my favorite materia medica is Robin Murphy's, and
That's
I
mine.
would buy that at
Mm-hmm.
lotushealthinstitute.com maybe, or dot, I think it's .com. Lotus Health Institute, not Amazon. So let me tell you, if you go to Amazon, you're
Yeah.
going to see this ginormous price. If you go to Lotus Health Institute, it's going to be about $90, and Amazon is much more
That's
expensive.
about what I
So
paid.
yeah, so go there. And then okay, and then you mentioned that his pain. It's been 2 years since you've done this, so maybe occasionally he still needs that Roostox and that arnica, right? But so you just treat it when it
Right.
comes up. And I love that as soon as he feels it, he hurries up and takes it. That's what we should do, and that's exactly what happened with my allergies. So in the beginning, when I started treating my allergies with homeopathy, I had to take it very often. And over the period of 18 months, it started spreading out. It was less and less frequent that I needed it, just like what you're talking about with your husband 2 years ago. and now, well, I haven't had allergies in a long time until last week. I suddenly, it had been it had been years, and I was like, what is this? I haven't had this. And I took one dose of my allergy remedy, and it was done, gone. And I haven't had anything else. So
Wow.
don't play with it. When you find the remedy that works, take it right away. So I think where people try to, um, they try to wait and see how bad it's going to be, because that's what we've done with ibuprofen and Tylenol and antibiotics, and we don't want to take the medicine. So we kind of wait it out and see, do we really need it? Don't do that with homeopathy. Just take it. It's going to be much more helpful if you do it fast. So I agree with all of those things. Um, Thank you for sharing that. That was very, very helpful. And remember, guys, that I transcribe all of these episodes so that you can go and read them on my blog if you prefer to read, or if you need remedy spellings, the names, and you need these protocols again. They'll be on my blog. And the next thing, so we love, we can treat acute conditions and chronic conditions with homeopathy. And so that was a chronic condition. He had that before had gotten married, and you've been married 18 years now. So, 2 years ago, 16 years, 17, 18, I don't know how long he had been dealing with that back pain. And to get rid of it in 2 years or less, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely less than 2 years. It was 2 years ago that you were doing this. So that's amazing. But let's talk about an acute situation that you've dealt with in your family. And I think you mentioned to me a bee sting, which is very common. Let's talk about how you dealt with that.
Okay, so um, last summer, so it was I think we started in May. I got a group of homeschool moms were interested in doing the Gateway 1 class. So I wouldn't say I taught it, but I led it. I had been through Gateway 1 one time. So I said, well, I'll lead it. I'll lead our discussions. I'll lead. So we went through that, and one of my friends that was in it was also part of our homeschool group, in that her son and my daughter are in the same class. So last summer, the kids in the class were at a friend's house, like, a summer get together. And the moms were, up talking. And I don't know how in the world this bee crawled inside my sandal. And it was a bumblebee. It wasn't like a little honeybee. And then all of a sudden, I felt a little pinch. And I thought an ant had bitten me. And so I looked down to, brush the ant off, and there was a bumblebee in my sandal. So I was like, oh my goodness, I just got stung. And then it really started the itch and the swell and the pain really started to kick in.
Yeah.
And my friend Melanie, she said, oh, I just happened to bring the 100 kit with me.
Yay! So Melanie.
So I go over.
I don't want to interrupt you,
Melanie.
but I have to say, Melanie, yes. And I know that you know this, but for the listeners, love Melanie and I have been friends for a while. We've homeschooled together, and then she took my Gateway class. And so was it after my Gateway class that she was like, hey, I've got this stuff. Is that what happened, or no? Or do you know?
No, she took your class after going through it with me the first time. I'm sure she learned much more.
Awesome.
From you the second time around.
So she did it twice. Okay, I don't think I remembered that. You had told me that she took that with you first. So, are you saying, so with this bee sting thing, had you ever heard of homeopathy before? Yeah, you have, because that was just last year.
Oh, yeah,
so
yeah.
Did she just say, I have this... I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. Go ahead and tell your story.
No, that's fine. Yeah, so after our Gateway class, she went and got the 100 kits. I think she got it from Washington Homeopathy.
Yes.
And she just happened to bring it. She goes, oh, I threw it in at the last minute since the kids were going to be all together. It's a summer afternoon, evening kind of thing. She just happened to throw it in her bag. I think she said pretty much like on the way out the door. I said,
wow.
Do you have Apis and do you have Ledum? And yes. So if I recall, in the kit, there's Apis 200, but there's only Ledum 30.
Okay.
I think. I think that's what I took. Anyways, so I immediately took the Apis first, whatever was the 200, so it was the Apis. And then I waited about 5 minutes and I took the Ledum. And seriously, 5 minutes later, nothing.
Nothing.
I was amazed. You could hardly even tell where I was stung. I was, and I've had great experiences with homeopathy, but this was one of those times where it still amazed me.
Yeah.
And I just kept telling everybody, I can't believe that I just got stung by a bee. Look at my ankle. And everyone's like, okay, you're weird, but all right. But it was wonderful. And I went home and I showed my husband. I said, look at my foot. Do you see anything weird? And he's going, Mom, is anything weird? I said, I know, I got a bee sting. And you can't even tell. But later on, so that was, let me think, it was probably like around 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So about bedtime, it started to itch a little bit. So I took Apis, and didn't bother me at all. The next morning, around 8 or 9, it started to itch again. So I just took, and this time I was just taking Apis 30.
Yeah.
And it was fine. I think maybe the next day I took one more dose, and that was it, and it was done. And it was beautiful.
Yes.
Because when I had bee stings in the past, huge welts, itching for days, the pain, the hotness, they would get
stinging.
hot.
Yeah.
And it also, so my daughter is deathly afraid of stinging insects. She's only been stung once, and it was when she was very, very little. But this was great for me to show her, to say, okay, you know, if you're afraid, we have homeopathy.
Yeah.
I still want you to get over your fear just for the sake of not being afraid.
Yeah.
However, we have something that will help you, and it'll help in an instant. And you saw how it worked with me.
Yeah.
So fear not. It definitely worked in that one.
Yes.
Quickly.
So good. So I want to point out that Ledum is the premier #1 remedy for any puncture wounds. So that would be your sting, your animal bite, your any kind of insect bite or sting, anything that punctures the skin. So a nail, some scissors, a pen, a needle, whatever that might be. Always think of Ledum, even if it's a shot that you receive from a medical professional. The fact that there's a puncture into the skin, into the body, is going to call for Ledum. And then, Apis is the homeopathic honeybee, and great for all things stinging, swelling, water-filled sacs. And I remember too, the last time I got stung by a bee, it was, and this was before homeopathy, it was, I'm going to say 5 to 7 days of stinging, swelling, itching, burning. I was in a great deal of pain. I got stung right here on my hand, and that pain went all the way up my arm to where I couldn't. It was a wasp that stung me, and the stinger. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but it looked like it was sticking out this far. When I looked, I didn't know what had happened, and I looked, and it looked like there was this. Am I? It looked huge in the moment. I probably am. But what I remember, and it happened so fast, but I'm walking, and all of a sudden I feel something, and I look, and it's sticking out of my hand. And there was this sac at the end of it.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even know I never saw a wasp. I didn't know what it was. And I was with my friend Beth, and I was like, oh my gosh, this hurts. What is this? And she grabbed it and pulled it out. She acted fast. She did what she thought was best. She wanted to get it out of me because she saw that it was how badly it was hurting me. But in grabbing it, likely, it couldn't have been that long because the venom couldn't have gone in that fast. So it was probably the venom sac. And so that went in, and then my arm hurt all the way, the whole arm. It was awful. But I know that, and I've seen it. So I've helped other people who've gotten bee stings. I see it, it's immediate. It's like, oh my gosh, what was that you just gave me? Are you serious right now? And I've only ever used Apis because I didn't. It's been a long time since I've even given anybody anything for a bee sting. But back then, when I did, it was Apis. Now I would use Ledum and Apis, just like what you did. That was perfect. And so I used to also have a big fear of bee stings because of that one instance. I was an adult, and that was pretty awful. And so I'm not afraid anymore. I mean, I'm really not. If a bee comes around me, I'm just like, really not a big deal. I used to run and scream. You wouldn't believe the way I acted. But now that I have homeopathy, I did. I would be like that little kid. And now that I have homeopathy, I'm just not. I'm just like, shoo it away. And the same thing with all kind of stuff. Just illness. I used to be extremely afraid to get sick.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just not anymore. I have the tools, I have the knowledge, and I have Jesus first. I mean, definitely all glory to Him. He is my healer. He is my provider, and it's Him that has delivered me from the anxiety, and just knowing that I have something, in my hand, and that can help so much for children. So I love also what you said about your husband made his own card. So that's what my youngest son has done. He made a card, and it's in his kit. He's got this little kit that fits maybe 8 or 10 remedies, and he's got his most commonly used ones. And he got tired of coming to ask me which one was for what. So he made himself a card. We sat down together, and he wrote out each one. And the act of writing those down helped him to memorize.
Yep.
And so a little homeschool lesson there. And so he has his little card. So he doesn't have to call me, right? If he goes to the lake with his grandparents or he's at school, when I say school, I mean our homeschool co-op. So he doesn't have to rely on me as much. So he's learning it for himself. I love homeopathy in acute pain. And then let's see. Let's take the last few minutes, if it's okay with you, because I think this is going to be hugely encouraging to the listeners. You treated your pain with homeopathy after you had been hit by a car. I think that's huge. And I felt like I wanted you to tell that story because somebody who's dealing with maybe a lesser kind of pain might get, or even the same kind of pain, might get encouraged that, hey, I mean, if she can use homeopathy for after getting hit by a car, I can use it for this sore wrist, right? Or whatever it is. But even if you have a big pain that you're dealing with and you think homeopathy can't do that, I hope that this story is going to encourage you that yes, it can.
Yes. And, well, I'll get to that point in my story. I'll save that for then. So, I run in the morning, and so this was a day in which I was directing at our co-op that day. So I gotten up a little earlier so that I would have time. I'm running home, and as I'm running through an intersection, not a full 4-way intersection, I guess I'm running in front of a street. As I got to the middle of that, a pickup truck, was coming. So I'm already in the middle. I'm assuming there's a stop sign. He's going to stop, right? He didn't. He blew the stop sign and ran into me. So thankfully, as soon as he hit me, I guess, or right before he hit me, he realized there's a person there. So it wasn't a huge hit, but nonetheless, so it knocked me to the ground. I fell right on my tailbone. He had come from this side, so instinctively I had put my hand up, so my wrist got a lot of the impact. So it was really my wrist, my tailbone, and then when I landed on my other hand, that wrist as well. Um, so I was a mile from my home. Um, Silly me, I didn't want to call my husband and say, wake him up. So I said, I'll just, I'll get home and I'll be okay. And so again, it was one of those things while you're moving, it seems okay. But by the time it took me to get home, it was pretty painful. And, he was up then, and I hobbled in to our bathroom and I said, get the Arnica 1M. And he goes, okay, what happened? I said, just get the Arnica 1M and I'll tell you. So he got that out for me and I took it. And I said, set a timer for 5 minutes.
I'm sorry. I didn't want us to overlap and talk. And I wanted to say I was thinking arnica before you said it because of the fact. Well, of course, a trauma. Arnica is great for any trauma, but also because you were like, I'll be fine. I'm gonna go ahead and walk back home. I'm gonna be just fine. That right there calls for arnica. So is that you just had a trauma and you're just like, nope, I'm fine. And I don't know, I'm not saying that that's what you were thinking. You were like, oh, I'm fine. I don't need anything. But I did that myself.
No,
I
I
was
really
in a
did.
Okay, so that's totally arnica. I was in a car accident and I was pretty badly hurt. And the ambulance, was there, and my husband was there, and my husband and the medic team, they were like, "I think you should go to the hospital." I was like, "No, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm going home." And I went home. No, I didn't get home. We were in the car, and finally I was like, "I think you better take me to the hospital." But I was like, "No, I'm fine. I'm fine." And and if that's kind of what you were, and that indicates arnica for all of you listeners. Just a little keynote to write down. Okay, so go ahead.
Mhm. Yeah. And I remember reading that when I was reading about arnica. I think that was I also have Joette's Materia Medica, and I think that was in hers when it's somebody is insistent that they're okay and they're obviously not. So I said, set a timer for 5 minutes and I'll take another dose. I'll see if I need another dose in 5 minutes. Because I knew I was a little spacey at that point. I knew I wasn't thinking clear and things were kind of not not moving in real time for me, if that makes sense. Um, so at the same time, I said, oh my goodness, I need to text my moms to see if we're even going to have a class today because I'm supposed to be there in like an hour. So I texted them. I said, I'll keep you updated on how I feel, but just as a heads up, we might not be meeting. So in about 5 minutes, I said, yeah, let me go ahead and take another dose of the 1M, and I'm going to take a shower. And I had saw that the hand that had hit the had been hit by the truck was swelling a little bit. So I took a shower, everything, and I said, you know what, I'm feeling a little better. So I said, let me take one more of the 1M and see how I feel. And did I write that down? I can't remember if I took anything else right now, or if I just kept taking arnica. I think it was just arnica. Um, and then I was feeling better, so I said, okay, we'll meet for class, and if I need to go home at lunch, I'll let you guys know. All the moms were there, anyways. I'll let you know, or we'll figure something out or whatever. And so I took 1M with me, and I also took 200. And it was painful to sit my tailbone. Oh, that's what it was, hypericum. So I took one dose when I realized, oh, my tailbone's really hurting. I took one
Yeah.
dose of hypericum 1M. And I said, I'll just take the arnica 200 with me, and I'll take the hypericum 200 with me. And I'll alternate those every hour or so as I feel like I need them. And it really was about every hour. And then I think I took arnica, and then an hour later I took hypericum, and then I think I waited probably maybe 2 hours before I needed arnica again. And then it was an hour, maybe 2 hours, if I remember correctly. It really started spacing itself out, as to how often I needed it.
Yeah.
And then, I got home and I laid down for the rest of the day, and I think it kind of took it out of me directing that day. In hindsight, probably should not have gone, but I felt
You should have
okay
rested.
enough. I probably should have rested.
Yeah.
But I did. I came home and I remember I took a nap and I was like, okay, this is a good sign. I can sleep fine. And my body's needing that rest and it's recovering. And so I think maybe I took another dose of each before I went to bed. Didn't wake up that night to have to take anything. When I woke up the next morning, I definitely needed it right when I woke up, though. And throughout the day, I think I spaced it every 2 to 3 hours, as I was needing it. And then the next day, oh, and the bruising on my hand totally went away after like 24 hours.
Yeah.
And I just remember telling my husband, I'm like, look, it's almost completely gone. It was just that little, you get that ugly yellowy color left. I'm going, I can't believe I don't have this huge bruise on my hand or like on my side or anything. It was wonderful. So I just kept dosing as I felt like I needed it. And a week later, I was back to running, which I couldn't believe. I thought, I'll be taken off for a couple weeks. And a week later, I was running again.
Nice.
Slower, but I was doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was for me, that was tremendous.
That is huge. That really is. And hypericum, for the listeners, is a great nerve remedy. So it's number one for nerve injuries and tailbone injuries. So arnica and hypericum after being hit by a car. That is amazing. And I love that you use the 1M. You were like, I'm just not even going to mess around with this. I'm just going to use the 1M. So that's hugely encouraging. I mean, when you hear that someone's been hit by a car and then they took homeopathy and then went to work, basically is what you did. When you're a director, when you're a classical conversations director, you are working.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I was a
Yes.
director for
Yes.
3 or 4 years. And so I remember that. That was a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so you got hit by a car, took homeopathy, went to work, and then rested well at night. And and we know that without homeopathy, you would have been using some pain medications. Maybe you would have gone to the doctor,
Yeah.
right? Because you would have been not able to manage the pain or whatever. So, and I want to encourage people, you have to have discernment. You have to decide when you need to go to the doctor and when you can handle it on your own. You have to do that. And so when you're unsure, get help. That doesn't mean run to the doctor or the emergency room when you're unsure, unless you can't breathe or you're bleeding out. But when you're unsure, maybe you need to call a friend and say, I'm just not sure about this right now. Or maybe you need to consult with a homeopath. I do acute consults and I do chronic consults, of course. But if you're unsure, get help. So whatever that looks like. Maybe it's the help of a friend. Maybe it's a family member. Maybe it's a homeopath. Maybe you need to go to the emergency room or the doctor. But most often, we can deal with these things at home. And that's what I want to teach people to have confidence in. And that's why I teach the gateway classes back to back. We take a 1 week break and then we do the next class. And we take a 1 week break, and I mean group of students. I take one group of students through the course, and then me and Bree take 1 week off, and then we go that next week and we teach it. So I do that, and then my mentorship program is a great follow-on to to the Gateway series, and you get a discount on my mentorship program if you take Gateway 1 and 2 with me. So for those of you who are interested, who want to take my mentorship program and have already taken Gateway with me, you'll get a discount, and that's Gateway 1 and 2. And if you haven't done any classes yet, or if you haven't done the Gateway series yet, I highly suggest it. Don't you, Donna? I mean, that was a great introduction, a solid foundation. And here go my dogs. I'm going to mute myself.
Yes. So one thing I wanted to say real quick is that rats. What did I want to say? Oh, what I wanted to say was I bought the Arnica 1M to have just in case, thinking hopefully I'll never need it, but this is a good thing to have just in case. And I was so thankful that I had it when I needed it. So as I started to learn about more remedies, and I saw, okay, we have a core group of remedies that our family is using, that's where I'm going to spend my money on up front and make sure we have those. And then some things that are possible that we might need, or if we have someone coming over might need them. So we have a couple of friends who are allergic to bees, so I have Apis 1M. We're not allergic, but if that situation arises, then I'm prepared for those emergency situations. Those are the remedies, and there's just a few, really. There's maybe 3 or 4 of those that I have just in case, but well worth the $10 it costs to buy them.
Yeah. Yes. So we need to be prepared. That's a last great thought. That's a great last thought. That we need to be prepared. Because if you have all this knowledge and you're listening to podcasts and you're taking Gateway classes and you're reading blogs and you don't have the remedies that you need on hand, what good is that? So you need a kit. If you're serious about homeopathy, you need a homeopathic kit. And my favorite one right now at the time of this recording is the number 2Z homeopathy.com. That's the website. And their first aid kit, that's my favorite. That's the one that I recommend to everyone. Lots of places, lots of pharmacies have kits, so just get one, even if it's not that one. And I'll give kits as gifts, like Christmas gifts and birthday gifts. And now it's not like everybody, because a kit is not cheap. It's around between $200 and $250. But to have this little tiny kit right in your hands, and you can throw this little thing in your purse, you can throw this in a bag, and whatever you're doing, and to have 50 medicines in here that you can choose from in an emergency situation or whatever, that's invaluable. Because again, if someone gets sick or hurt and you don't have remedies, what good is it to know what to do if you don't have the tools?
And they won't expire. They're practically good for the rest of your life. So
that's right.
It's a great investment.
Yes. Thank you so much, Donna, for being with us again today. I do hope that you'll come back and we'll talk about something else another time.
Oh, I love to talk about homeopathy, so whenever you want to have me back, I'll be happy to come talk.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and your weekend and your school year. I know that you're homeschooling mama like me, so all of you homeschooling mamas, we just encourage you. We know it's hard. We've been doing this for a long time, and there's fruit, and it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. So God bless you all. Have a wonderful day.